Hello, welcome to Making Moves, where each week myself, Ross Hastings, and Kieran Antill discuss one company who is repositioning in their market that week, for better or for worse. Always selected from a couple of options sent to us by our team with very short notice, always done in under 15 minutes, always unedited, always unscripted, and therefore always with the able assistance of some liquid encouragement. So what are you sipping on this week, Kieran?
On good old coffee.
Not planned in advance, but
Hey!
I've gone with my classic iced filter in my trusty Yeti cup.
There you go.
All right. When did you quit coffee for a while?
I did a good 18 months with no coffee.
Does it feel different being back?
I think it's the smell that got me back. I should just be smelling it.
Yeah, just a coffee infuser or something.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with the assistance of our trusty coffees, today we are going to be talking about Under Armour, and I guess the move specifically we'll be discussing is the breakup from The Rock and Project Rock. But the further context is that it's about a year on from a breakup from Steph Curry as well. So it's another brand architecture conversation. It's a retraction from their kind of endorsed partner sub-brands. And I think the overriding thing to discuss is this a move? I mean, they're definitely they're framing it as a focus move. But as we'll get into, and the backdrop is some declining results, things like that. So it could be a retraction. It could be out of their hands. Who knows? But I guess that's the overriding thing to discuss. So, what have you been reading? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's always this it's a lot about borrowed equity. And so while it's a brand architecture space, sometimes those sort of sponsorship deals are they're structured quite differently, and some of these ones like Project Rock and the Steph Curry brand, probably because they echo things like the Jordan brand, and there's been that sort of blueprint. It sort of, they are a brand unto themselves, and so then it goes sort of what was the deal negotiated there, which is who owns this said brand, because it's not where all this stuff started, which was, could you just hold my product and I'll pay you to hold my product. Now it's become far more sophisticated. But in both cases, it's a story of where the borrowed equity, the sponsor becomes bigger than the brand itself. So all of a sudden people are actually buying this because it's got Curry on it, not because it's got Under Armour.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I probably see that a slightly different way, is that it's an equity exchange. It's not just Under Armour borrowing equity from Steph Curry or The Rock. It's the other way around as well. Even if that equity is manufactured distribution, there is some sort of equity swap. And I think where that exchange becomes imbalanced is where you start to have these problems. And I think similar to when we talked about SBS Viceland, it's really interesting when these things lead to a breakup. I think we said at the time that it's a cautionary tale about having a clear prenup in place for if the worst happens, because we have so many examples, usually from the likes of Nike, where they work well, right? But then there's these examples, and they seem to be increasingly so, where people followed the Nike blueprint and it hasn't gone quite so well. And the interesting thing is, Under Armour, I don't have numbers, but significant store closures over the last couple of years, and significantly declining business results, particularly over the last 2 years. So the first year of decline kind of culminated in the Steph Curry breakup, and the second year with the Rock breakup. So it definitely, as much as it is being framed as focus, it comes across as definitely the other party no longer valuing the relationship as much as they did.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, all of the reframing is that we're a return to master brand. So in other words, people want to buy Under Armour rather than buying Project Rock or buying the Curry's brand. But you'd have to, depending on, regardless, and it doesn't really matter whose decision is driving what. Obviously, it's not seen profitable. So there might be great revenue there. Steph Curry brand might be selling really well, as is the Proc brand Rock Project, which has got MMA tie-ins and all that sort of stuff. But by that rationale, the Under Armour brand is all but white labeled. They are just the manufacturer of that, and so therefore, despite those sales, it's just not profitable for them. So a return to
for Under Armour.
Or Under Armour.
Do you have those numbers? I don't have anything about the actual specific endorsed brand sales, but do we know that hasn't been profitable for Under Armour?
I'm basing this off the wide popularity of both The Rock and Curry, that if positioned well, those things do sell well and have sold well in the past. Is that part of their declining story? But obviously they're saying, return back to, I don't, Nike is an example. Probably the most highest selling bit of apparel is the shirt that says Nike. You know what I mean? Like, that's sort of like, people buy into the brand, and that's something that Under Armour, that's a hell of a benchmark to put yourself against, but that's something that Under Armour really hasn't captured, is that logo shirt of what does it mean to wear Under Armour. So I think, to believe the press releases they're putting out, which, there's a part of truth to that. It is, we've got to get back to, what does Under Armour actually mean? That needs to mean something. Otherwise, when we're negotiating these equity deals, we don't have as much to bring.
Yeah, like you said, it starts to get to a stage where you just become a white labeled, manufacturer that carries the brand of others, as opposed to a brand, endorsed brand. The roots. Perhaps it's interesting to look at how something like Jordan has evolved in the Nike brand architecture, because that has definitely changed shape over years. And I think you've spoken about this on one of these before, but maybe talk about how the Jordan partnership started from a brand perspective and how it's evolved.
It's probably a good example. Jordan's one of the most global athletes, through the 80s. It's just Michael Jackson and Michael Jordan. Friggin', that was the global, swing of American influence in that format. And you could say very much that Jordan became bigger than Nike. And that would be very dangerous, except for the fact that the way the deal has ultimately panned out, has been structured, is that it is owned by Nike. And so they saw that and recognized that and spun off the Jordan brand, but still owned by Nike and run by Nike. And that seems to be an incredible partnership for all those involved. So there's an example where, actually, had that structure not been done, it would be a story sort of what was the Project Rock is talking about with Under Armour, which is great. Thanks for your time. That's been really good. But we're going to see Project Rock probably pop up under, On or Puma or something, like, which is quite, that's sort of an example as well. Actually, I didn't need to be an Under Armour. I could have been manufactured by anyone. So,
well, on that, we don't know where they're going yet, and it sounds like they're shopping around. But we do know that Steph Curry made a move to a new partnership, and that's an interesting part of this story.
Yeah, I think that it sort of reminds me a little bit of Federer's move to Uniqlo, where you've got an athlete who's super influential, but both have in their own way great personality and charisma, but both are ending their career. So what I think is interesting, they are at the end. They're not the rookie anymore. And so you all of a sudden are actually signing on a lifestyle person. So I think that's kind of interesting. Yeah, there's more basketball left in Steph Curry for sure, but he's got such likability. And so I think that's what Uniqlo saw in Federer, where Nike was sort of moving away and, just like, we're an athlete's brand. So there's that component of it with Steph Curry, but there's also
and he's gone to, just for clarity, he's signed a partnership with Li Ning, Chinese manufacturer.
That's the thing that's sort of interesting and sort of maybe a precursor to what's happening in lots of industries. But this is an example, one of the few examples I'm aware of, where you've got a Chinese brand actually getting borrowed equity into the US. So let's get a big name. And so that's going to be quite interesting. And I think before this, you sort of mentioned what's happening with automotive vehicles and stuff as well, where all of a sudden you got populations, Western populations, that are like, yeah, sure, this BYD brand's great. And,
well, I think it's a move, like it seems to be, like you said, maybe it's a sign of more to come, move more to Chinese manufacturers owning the full value chain, fully vertically integrated, bypassing the distribution via, a Western brand in this case, just going straight to the affiliate partnership.
Yeah, so I think the most destabilizing thing for any brand that's not Chinese is that it's become widely known, whether you're Apple or Nike, you're made in China.
Exactly.
Or a version of it. And I think we're seeing a new iteration of what does it mean to be made in China. So you can say we'll do all this stuff, or you might say I won't buy a Chinese brand, depending on which country you're in. But everyone's retort is pretty much the same as well. The other brand that you think you like is still made in China. So it comes down to quality control and design sensibilities and whatnot. And I think in many industries those things are kind of getting knocked out of the park. So there's no doubting Li Ning's ability to make great clothing and apparel. What's been missing on a global scale are some of those names to wear. What does it mean to wear that brand?
Yeah. I think BYD, to jump across to automotive, is an interesting example because they've moved incredibly fast. They've built brands, arguably brand, but certainly market share remarkably quickly. But they've done so by making some, in your terms, big bets, massive bets that at the moment appear to be paying off. But the thing is that they do seem to be kind of having this fully vertical integration play. Like, BYD are going in the opposite direction to a lot of the other automotive in terms of, owning and branding the dealerships themselves, whereas a lot of the other manufacturers are going to dealership partnerships and things like that. So it's kind of similar to what they've done with Steph Curry, is just going straight to owning the partnership, owning the supply chain, owning the full value chain. And
on one part, that's a value capture story of this. So ultimately, being able to own the thing. But another way to look at it, which is definitely related, is just understanding that brand is the sum of all those experiences. And if you do not control it, and this is the bane of any existence, if you've worked on or you work for a brand like a Canon or a Samsung, or any kind of physical product, the pain of going, well, I've got this great product, but it's ultimately distributed through a third-party retailer, and I cannot control that experience. I'm restricted on shelf. I'm next to all my competitors, and worst case, you walk in and the salesperson goes, "Oh, I don't know about that brand," and so you don't control that, and that's hence the Apple's owning the full experience. You're talking about BYD and everything. There's a real reason to own everything, and you say it's happening quick, and I'm sure you would agree, it's not from a standing start quick. It's building momentum, and that's what I think that everyone.
Well, like you said, they've got a long now established heritage in huge bits of the value chain. They're just cutting out one small bit of it now to control the whole thing. It seems to be the trend. Anyway, we're seeing a sign of
the bit that they haven't got is the easiest bit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah.
Checkbook. You can borrow this equity. You can say, yeah, do you want to wear my stuff? And I mean, this is actually where a lot of businesses, in that promotional layer or that value proposition or how they are positioned in the market.
Look at 10 seconds.
Is the
finish on the gold.
Well, how you position yourself in the market is probably the easiest way to create value.
Done. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.